for these three speakers. So if anybody has any questions, let's go ahead and start. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the big controversies around science during the Deepwater Horizon in the early days of the spill was whether or not scientifically to assess the rate of discharge from the wellhead. And if you recall, they initially said that it was a 5,000 barrel per day spill, 1,000 barrel per day spill, and this was very uncertain. But they also said that an attempt to measure the rate of the spill would interfere with the response operations and therefore should not be done. Has that paradigm changed? Because I think once they did know the rate of the spill, the response effort changed completely. They did the subsea dispersant. Many things were better.
Well, in my opinion, getting accurate flow information is very important. And it didn't take too long. I mean, remember, right after the spill,
It took a month.
Yeah, but boy, there was a lot going on in that month, and the level of knowledge of getting down there. You can't go down and measure it because it's not a little meter you can plug in and find out. You had to send RVs down. You had to find it. I know there's a tendency to not overstate, and I think that was used in here. What if we had gone in and said the first spill, we've got an uncontrolled reservoir that has a discharge potential of 100,000 barrels a day or something like that? Would that have been better? I don't know. That was an Admiral Allen decision. Of course, getting accurate information on flows, it's a lot easier to say than to do. Initially, I think, though, there was, 3 or 4 flows coming out. The riser piped it in a couple of spots. So what was it? Anybody? Hey, how many discharges were occurring?
Three.
3? There were 2 kinks and the well riser. Yeah. So, but getting it, but to quote another prominent figure, what difference does it make? We had a spill. Now, what the difference would have made is, would we have gone or could we done anything quicker than we did? I thought the response was absolutely magnificent. I'm speaking as a citizen of Louisiana, and most people in Louisiana don't know the thousands of people from NOAA and EPA and all forms of government that responded to this spill, worked 24/7, and we just can't thank them enough. So I thought that they mobilized about as quickly as I have.
I'm not denigrating the response efforts at all. I'm asking a specific question about, is it now formalized that in the event of a deepwater spill like this, that we would immediately begin assessing the rate? Because that was a confusion at the beginning. That's my question.
Yes.
I think I agree. The response effort was magnificent. But
is Charlie Henry here? Charlie was part of the SSC.
You already had an answer, though. Come on up.
Yes.
We can project your voice. The answer is yes? Yes. Answer is yes.
So I've had some responsibility with developing monitoring plans for the next event that hopefully we never have. And that's one of the first things. So lessons learned from that event have been used to develop monitoring plans, and it includes estimating rates.
Including regulatory requirements.
Yeah.
Another side of that is, and this is very different sides, what if we stop discussing how to do a better analysis of the corpse and take these billions of dollars on prevention? Because we know this was actually a predictable spill. I looked at, you do these frequency events and size diagrams, a lot of small spills, a few bigger ones, and one really massive ones. This is right on the line. It was predictable. So what if we had taken $10 billion, whatever is being paid out, and spent that on prevention? And then we wouldn't have some of these problems, or we would have fewer of them. And I think that's a consideration to learn from a spill like this, is that these things are horribly expensive, regardless of why and who pays. They're horribly expensive in terms of the economic issues, they're in terms of people's time, in terms of the insults to the environment, and there were plenty of things that were damaged from the spill that last in terms of habitat loss, seagrasses, marshes, loons, sparrows, insects in the marsh, all kinds of things that we still don't quite know because they're very subtle sometimes and nuanced, but a lot of them aren't. So what if we spent more time and do spend more time on prevention? And of course, there's a lot of sociological issues to that as well, and I'm not a sociologist, and I don't want to go there, but, I mean, as technically, but, I mean, it seems to me that that's part of the conversation out of this. It isn't just how can we better put out a better boom, you know? It isn't just how can we get more ships out there. It's how do we prevent them from happening at all. So.
Well,
And I'm not saying anybody was defending, saying let's do more spills. I'm just saying that maybe as a society, ought to think about that side of the equation.
So I would just say that, so I lead the oil spill response research program for ExxonMobil, and I just that's a fraction of the budget, right? Prevention is the focus. When you first walk in the door as a new employee for a company like ExxonMobil, and I think the rest of the industry is the same way, operations integrity is drilled into your head. Every decision you make has to have some sort of risk assessment behind it, and the complexity of that risk assessment depends on the complexity of the decision and the repercussions of the decision. So the amount of effort that goes into prevention is far greater from the industry than it goes into response. And then every event is carefully analyzed, and lessons learned, and regulators and industry does as well. Lessons learned go into making prevention even better. So prevention is definitely the key focus for everything we do in the oil industry, that's for sure.
Is there anybody, any other questions? No? Anybody by the room? You want another one? Sure, go for it.
I have another question, which is, if you look at the regional oil spill response plans prior to 2010, they featured prominently the booming of shorelines to protect sensitive areas such as marshes and bird sites and so forth. Is that still part of the, I mean, I look at the post-2010 regional plans, and booming is not such a big factor, and I wonder, within industry, how has the shift been from booming and having hundreds of miles of booms available versus techniques like burning and skimming? How has that changed? Has that changed?
Well, I think, so booming is used strategically, right? And I think we've always known that it's a strategic option, and you're not going to be able to boom a sandy beach, right? If oil hits that boom, the oil's going to go over the beach unless something's done immediately, and doing something immediately when you have miles and miles of boom. So I think there's always been an understanding, but that's one of the areas where maybe the science doesn't necessarily get into that issue, right? And the science would say that maybe it's not, the resources should be spent on something other than booming off the entire Gulf of Mexico, because that's not going to do anything. Certain aspects and diverting oil from certain sensitive areas should be the strategy, and just putting booms up everywhere. So I'm not sure exactly how the response plans have changed, but certainly there is an understanding within industry, and I think all the responders understand as well that shoreline booming was a political thing during the Deepwater Horizon event, and it has its place, but thinking that you're going to hold back oil from the Gulf Coast is just not the way it works.
So, and I think following up on that, the development of the geographical response plans look very closely at areas that can be boomed and areas where boom will not be effective because of the type of shoreline, because of the wave energy. And, communities have gotten together and made some decisions about priorities, what we can and what we can't protect. Given resources available, these would be the first things that we would protect, and other things. And then that becomes a moving decision matrix through the response as it evolves, because obviously the oil just doesn't stay in one place. So are there still some places that are boom? Yes. Are some of those bird areas? Yes. Are some of those sandy beaches? Likely not, because they're high energy. But focusing those strategies to be most effective so that areas that are very sensitive or difficult to clean are protected as much as possible.
Okay, let me throw in on that. Another important part of this strategy is it has to get input from all the players before an event. Because when an event's going on and you say, this area needs to be protected, where were you when we were developing strategies to protect these areas? So we need inputs, the area committees. I mean, I strongly encourage people to get involved in respect area committees and bringing these topics up. Look at the maps and say, hey, why are you protecting this area here? And get the rationale behind it. After the fact, during a spill, it's too late. It's not going to happen then.
Go ahead.
If I can add to what Andy's saying, we're fortunate in the Gulf, there's been a significant amount of effort spent since Wakanda on the area contingency plans, particularly the geographic response strategies. And several of the states have taken upon themselves to make those available digitally. So it turns out that I'm pretty sure that most of the Gulf Coast is now available online in a digital area contingency plan environment. So Texas does, Louisiana is, Tennessee, Louisiana has it, and then Florida has taken on the task of doing Florida, Alabama, and Mississippi. So those are available online. Those strategies.
Yes.
Has anything been done to get those strategies out to people who aren't online or who don't read at the level that a lot of people, that everybody in this room does?
Well, as Andy pointed out, the actual method to get involved in that type of activity or interest is through the area committees, which have been in existence for decades and should be well known within the communities if they're talking to the right people.
How are you ensuring you're talking to the right people?
I'm sure I'm not doing something ground in that arena. You might have to ask somebody who's
Sea Grant
involved in the
personnel.
area.
Yeah, Sea Grant personnel are always out there talking to the local communities. We're having public meetings often, just reaching out whenever, even at the elementary school level, bringing the information in and sharing that. So there's lots
These
of
area
people
committees in particular, each one is associated with a captain of the port.
Right.
So each of the captain of the ports from Key West, St. Petersburg, Mobile, New Orleans, Morgan City, Port Arthur,
I can,
Galveston, and Corpus Christi. All have area committees.
and I can say, when Sea Grant was mentioned, each one of our team members has been to our local area committee meetings to present, like was mentioned. And so we have a good relationship with them. And so if you're ever asked, we get emails on when they're happening. So if you want to be informed or go attend one, go ahead
I'm
and.
informed. Well, listen.
Right, I'm just saying,
Informed. But
right.
some of the community people I deal with
Mhm.
are not aware of it.
Right.
So we need to perhaps do a better job of informing not just the people who are already interested,
Right.
but the people who might potentially be interested.
Okay,
You know,
so now we're getting
people
ahead
who are
of,
already involved.
you're getting ahead of my schedule here.
Actually,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kathleen, first.
No, I'm just speaking on behalf of the captain of the ports for the area committee. Point well taken. You're right. We don't always have the right people there. So how do we figure that out? And we do rely heavily on Sea Grant. I know we had an area committee meeting, I don't know, it's about 6 months ago or something, but we weren't working as closely with the academic community as we should have. So they brought them in, and then all of a sudden we're talking together, and that was good. But I know that there's people out there that we're not reaching that we need to. So, if you see that, please bring it up, and we'll try and be, it's a very inclusive environment, and that's how we want it to be.
And I think following up on that, exactly what Kelly said is that from our standpoint as an SSC, we do a lot of, and our organization, ORNR, does a lot of outreach, but that grassroots, talking to folks who aren't necessarily there, sometimes, the Vietnamese fishing community and other ethnic fishing communities, having the Sea Grant fellows in this area being able to do some of that outreach to really look at the markets and survey them in a much more intensive way than we can do has been terrific. And part of it, I think, too, is incumbent on everybody in the room is, each one teach one, is that, you don't just work here, you work in your community. You buy shrimp from the guy at the market, is, your kids play ball with them, is reaching out that way in a very informal sense and bringing people in as they need to be in. We've seen a lot of that happen just because people we're friends with or knew fishermen or shrimpers, and we're able to transmit information that way. So that informal network is really important.
So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to move on our agenda. But before that, let me do a little housekeeping. So those who are online cannot participate in our breakout groups, so I'm going to go ahead and say thank you for joining us online. Tara is going to send you a link to an evaluation for this workshop, so if you could follow that link and fill out the evaluation. Any information is good information for us. It helps us decide how to do these things better, what we did wrong, what we did great, minus all the technical issues. And so if you can fill those out, great. So for those of you online, thank you for participating. Now for those of you here, this actually segued perfectly into the conversation. So how did this come about? Back when we first started, this whole communicating between researchers and responders came to light in Texas. And we were asked if we could possibly let me get rid of this. How can Sea Grant help bring these people together? So we hosted a workshop similar to this in Texas, and it went really, really well. And so for the next phase of our project, I proposed that we do this in every state, hence we're here in Louisiana. And again, we brought in the folks that you are going to see who are, the educators, the academia folks, the oil spill response folks in this local community. We want to try and bridge that gap. Talk to each other, figure out faces, who would you talk to, who do you go to. So that is pretty much the whole point of this. So we did this in Texas 2 years ago. It's coming here to Louisiana now, and hopefully we will continue to go along the Gulf to the Mississippi, Alabama area and the Florida area. And again, it's just for networking and to start that communication on who do you talk to, who do I go to, who has the knowledge, how do I get involved, the same similar thing. So now what we are hoping, no, that's not working. So now what we're going to do is we're going to break out into groups, and if you came in and you had, oh, fabulous, okay. This is just a day of surprises. If you came in, your name tag had a number. And if you look, there's easels around the room. One's over here, two's in the back, two's in the middle, four's in the back, and 3 is actually going to be outside. There's going to be a Sea Grant oil spill team member facilitating these questions. Again, these are questions just to ask. How do we get the different target audiences, the group, to kind of think and see how we can start getting acting together and facilitating and networking together, fostering these relationships. Just for, if you did not get a number, just to let you know, we did try to keep the Louisiana folks together. That way we get state-specific information. So if you're in Louisiana and you possibly do not have a number, go to group 1 or 2. But then we mixed up all target audiences within each group. So Larissa should have put a number hopefully on your name tag. Again, if you didn't get a name tag, Louisiana, stay in 1 and 2. Everybody else can go to 3 and 4. So if we can just go ahead and get up and go to your specified location. We will be there for about 45